Hi, this is the class lecture for U.S. History Period 6, Unit 7.2 on the Korean War. So we started today's class, or this class, with a do now question, really looking at why might textbooks from different countries offer different versions of the same historical event. So they have like different interpretations of it. So this is what you would want to answer for your do now question. Just as a heads up, today's proven behavior will count as this week's formative assessment. And the objective for today is that given marginalia notes and textbook readings, students will be able to evaluate U.S. intervention during the Korean War by answering 3 proven behavior questions. So the last class, 7.1, we looked at the Cold War. We wanted to know what Europe was like after World War II, and we established that there was like that line, that Iron Curtain that divided the democratic side of Europe from the communist side of Europe. The U.S. started creating these different CETO and NATO treaties and alliances to be able to combat communism. And instead of like trying to get rid of communism altogether, the U.S. took on a containment type of approach where they said, I just want to make sure that communism doesn't spread. We don't have to get rid of it, but we don't want it to spread. And so today, we're looking at, after the U.S. decided all of that and made these definitive statements like, we are going to contain communism, we do not believe in communism. After all of that happened, stuff started happening in Korea. And we're going to be exploring how the Korean War got started, who fought in it, and really who was responsible for everything that was created. So, if you were absent, you would want to create your notes, label them 7.2, the Korean War, and you're going to be evaluating the United States decision to enter into the Korean War. So the first thing to really look at is the division of Korea. Korea had been controlled by Japan during World War II. The Japanese colonized that a long time ago. But when Japan surrendered, Korea was divided into 2 separate zones of occupation. They were divided into the northern side, that went to the USSR, and obviously the USSR made it communist, and the southern Korea, and that was given to the United States, and obviously that was made democratic. The line that divided those 2 countries was known as the 38th parallel. So as you can see, if you can follow my mouse, this is the 38th parallel, and that is exactly what divides North Korea from South Korea. That divides the communist Korea from the democratic Korea. The part that was originally controlled by the USSR to the part that's now controlled by the United States. Now, on June 25th, 1950, South and North Korea went to war. They basically went to war on their own. They were fighting within their own country, but the U.S. felt they had to help South Korea because of a few different reasons. From what we learned in 7.1 about the United States adopting a containment policy where they wanted communism to just be contained, not to spread. They wanted it to be contained. They really wanted to protect the concept of democracy, so they wanted to really support South Korea in that because South Korea was a democratic country. And this was their indirect way of kind of giving a little blow to Stalin, who was in the USSR, and poke at the communist ways that he's promoting. Even President Harry Truman, we have the quote right here, said, "If we let Korea down," meaning South Korea, "the Soviets will keep right on going and swallow up one place after another." Alright, so that's like the domino effect. That's where if one country starts to become communist, they are all going to slowly start becoming communist as well, one country right after the other. So, the UN wanted to prove that it was stronger than the League of Nations, and so they agreed to send troops to assist the United States in South Korea. War was never declared, okay? This was not an official war. It was called UN Police Action. It's called UN Police Action. So for classwork, Ms. Quinteros and I gave out 2 textbooks accounts of the Korean War. One was from the North Korean perspective, one was from the South Korean perspective. We really wanted you to be able to see how the war looked different depending on if you were coming from either the North or the South and what your mentality was. All of this work, classwork, was done in partner work, and there were only 3 guiding questions that you really needed to answer for that. So if you need help completing the classwork from 7.2, please come see us so you can get those articles. So as you can see here, there was an armistice. So in July 1953, China and the United States finally agreed to leave the border almost exactly at the 38th parallel. So throughout all of this fighting, instead of moving the 38th parallel, they decided we'll keep it there. About 5 million people were killed in that war, which is a lot. And so the question came up, like, was this war effective? Was it pointless? The United States did successfully contain communism to North Korea and did protect South Korea. But at what cost? Was it worth 5 million people's lives? And with the 30th parallel not moving at all. So some of the consequences of the war were that, and the agreement allowed that prisoners of war could stay where they wanted. So it drew a new boundary near the 38th parallel that gave South Korea an extra like 1,500 square miles of territory and created a 2-mile wide demilitarized zone that still exists today, the DMZ. And so that's actually a place that I visited. It was very, very interesting to see. But ultimately, in the Korean War, even though it wasn't formally declared a war, almost 40,000 Americans died in action in Korea, and more than 100,000 were wounded. And that is just the number for American soldiers, not even for North or South Koreans. So ultimately, after these notes and going through the reading, there was a short video, but there are 3 proven behavior questions that need to be answered. And so make sure if you are absent that you are answering those 3 proven behavior questions and getting that to us, because that does count as your grade. The exit ticket was really looking at, was the Korean War a victory or a loss for the United States? So we want you to explain your perspective using some of these vocabulary words. The 30th parallel, USSR, United States, North Korea, South Korea, really going into the concept of democracy versus communism. There are a lot of things here that you can use and go through that. But ultimately, this was the Korean War, very quick 1 lecture. And then next class we will be looking at the Vietnam War as well.